Well, welcome to Profit Made Simple. Today we have a very special and exciting guest, Rob Theo. Welcome to the podcast.
Dan, thanks for having me, mate.
Mate, absolute pleasure to have you here. Now, I haven't known you too long. We only met each other this year, but I see you as a fantastic speaker. I saw you on stage and you're incredible. You've written an amazing book, which we'll talk about in a little bit, called Velocity. You coach and mentor. You're a 7-figure business owner. So you've been incredibly successful, but it hasn't always been this way for you, has it, Rob?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Take us back, all right? Because right now, if they looked you up, our listeners looked you up on social media, they would see this successful Rob Theo. But take us back, rewind, because you've got quite a story in how you got here. I want to hear that.
Beautiful. Well, we'll all start by saying I was raised in a good Greek family, 4 siblings, youngest of 4. And I started my journey when I was 11 years old. Started working in my parents' takeaway shops, and every school holidays, every weekend, I'd be there helping them out. And that's where my journey started. And as I progressed through, became a Sparky. But when I became a Sparky, I started my business. And in 2011, and a lot of people don't know this, I actually was incarcerated. And my offences were drug-related. And so going from the world of startups, I had an electrical business. And also I was importing goods from overseas, electrical products. So things were looking good, but in the need of financial help, I decided to do something illegal. And because of the consequence, I spent 18 months in a maximum security prison.
Wow. That would have come at a huge shock to your family. You said you had a great Greek family, the youngest of 4. They would have obviously instilled a great work ethic in you. Yeah. They would have been so proud to see you get a quality trade and build a business. And then you end up incarcerated. What led you down that path? What was the driver for you looking at, other means of generating money for yourself?
Probably the biggest downfall for me was I was always too proud to ask for help. And that was a huge lesson that I took away from that experience, because being the youngest of 4, I had siblings to help me. I had friends to help me. I had my parents to help me. My parents believed in me, where they gave me funds to start the importing business. And it wasn't a lot of money that I needed at the time. I could have done quite a few sales, but I was always very impatient as well. And I've learned that over the years, especially through my father, is things do not happen overnight. You need to be patient. And I remember when that all happened and I was incarcerated, my whole world got flipped upside down, literally overnight. And going from being from a good Greek family and great parents and siblings that loved me dearly and were so close, it's like everyone was asking why. It was very, very out of character for me to do something like that. And I was just too proud to ask for help. And I remember my brother, not long after that had happened, he came to visit me in prison and he goes, "What did you need at the time?" And I said, 5-10 grand. He goes, "All you had to do was ask." And that stuck with me ever since. And I've learned to drop my ego and really, whenever there's a situation where, even if it's advice and you think that it might be stupid to ask for help, never think that. Because, having a conversation with someone just could be the catalyst of getting you out of that situation as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. Some great lessons there already for our audience and our listeners. Number 1, you were just too proud. And we should always put up our hand for help. I encourage it to anybody listening, watching right now. If you're going through something, put your hand up for help. There are people that will be in your corner and are more than too happy to do so, particularly those closest to you, your family. The second thing was that you're impatient. So you obviously had a lot of ambition, you had aspirations, but you were looking for shortcuts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look back at my life now. My late father passed away. It'll be 3 months in December, but he had this amazing ability to be patient. And I remember he used to build magical things, and he wouldn't even draw things down. It'd be up in his head. And he'd make these magnificent things out of wood, and he would just create amazing things. And he had patience. But for me, when I was younger, I wanted something and I wanted it now. And through that experience, when your liberty is taken away, you have no choice but to be patient. So when you're thrown in a cell where there's nothing apart from a stainless steel toilet, a thin mattress, no books, no TV, the space is 4x2, you have to be patient. And that taught me so much about just relax. You might not have it now, but even the greats, what they've achieved, it took time. When you plant a seed, you can't force that seed to grow. You water it, you fertilize it, and in due course, through nature, it grows when it's supposed to grow. And that taught me a lot. I had to be patient, and luckily I wasn't claustrophobic as well, because in a facility like that, it can make you go nuts. And I did go pretty crazy at one stage, which really affected me mentally. But yeah, patience is such a strong virtue to have.
Yeah, so no doubt it would have been a tumultuous time for you. It would have brought up a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
But it taught you some really valuable lessons. And were you aware of those lessons at the time, Rob? Were you aware that, hey, this is my teacher right now. It's going to teach me to be patient. It's going to teach me to delay gratification. Could you see it there and then?
I could. And one of the biggest lessons I learned from that experience was in life, a lot of people that I run into now specifically, but even through my journey, is be humble. Because if you're not humble, life will humble you in some way. And that for me was a catalyst in changing the way I was thinking, changed my mindset, changed my life. It was a driving force to who I am today. I would not be on this trajectory, on this path, had I not faced and went through what I went through in prison.
Tell me about the experience in prison. Obviously, you learn a lot about yourself. But what was it like? Because all of a sudden you're in this very different environment.
Yeah.
You said already that it wasn't great for areas of your health in there. How did you navigate just this? It would have just, your whole world would have turned upside down. How did you get through that?
I was in denial for a long time. When it first happened, I remember for the first couple of weeks, I would wake up in the middle of the night sometimes, and I'd wake up in hot flashes. I'd be sweating, thinking and hoping that this was a dream. And it wasn't until a month in, I was like, shit, this stuff is real, you know? And the biggest thing for me was, it affected me mentally. And I was in denial for a long time. I went through many years, even after my release, thinking that I wasn't broken. But in actual fact, I was broken. I was a very broken man. And
what do you mean by that? How were you a broken man?
Yeah,
Tell me what you mean.
Sure. So, I suffer from a condition called intrusive thoughts. And if you don't know what intrusive thoughts are, it's actually a mental condition. And basically, once a thought, an unwanted thought, a fabricated thought gets deeply ingrained and rooted in your mind, and you keep thinking that same thought mixed with deep emotion, in a short period of time, you'll start to believe it, even though it's not real. And that's what happened with me. I remember being in Long Bay, but I spent most of my time in Goulburn. Now, Goulburn was called the killing field in the 70s and 80s. So one of the oldest prisons in Australia. And I remember for the first couple of months in Goulburn, I was sharing a cell with a murderer.
Wow.
Who had been on Australia's Most Wanted. So I was sort of sleeping at night with one eye open and thinking, you know, is this guy going to kill me? Like, you know, I have to be careful. But we built this trust with one another. But the intrusive thoughts were going wild. And I'm a person where if I have a fear, I've got to face it. That's how I get over it, right? My fight or flight sympathetic nervous system was on overdrive.
Constant fear.
Constant fear. It was debilitating. It was paralyzing. And these thoughts wouldn't leave me alone. And I couldn't face my fear to get over it. And that was the biggest thing that really broke me. And I remember on the 31st of December, 2011, I had an epiphany where I was sitting in my cell. At this stage, I was alone, on the verge of New Year's Eve. And I remember at one stage, I was just banging my head against the wall, you know, like a 3-foot wide concrete wall. And I just wanted to end my life, you know, and I pulled off my cross around my neck and I went to throw it. And I'll never forget, an invisible force was just holding my hand shut. I couldn't throw it, you know, and an inner voice said to me, don't give up. You're not alone.
Wow.
And I made a pact that if my mind can get me into that state in such a short duration and get me so low, I knew that my mind had the ability and the capacity to get me out of that state, because the universe revolves around polar opposites, right? They're everywhere. And this was no different. And people think when they go through a hard time, they think that when they hit rock bottom, that's it, it's the end. When in actual fact, it's the beginning of your rise. So day by day, I had to chip away and work on myself. and I had to be patient because, again, I couldn't face those fears. I couldn't face those intrusive thoughts.
How did you combat that? Because that can be all-consuming, because you're in this environment now where you've got fears that are real.
Yeah.
You're bunking with a murderer, and there would have been a whole bunch of unique individuals that you would have been surrounded by. So there is rational fears,
Yep.
and then there's a whole bunch of these intrusive thoughts that are irrational fears. How could you differentiate between the two, and then how did you navigate that? Because it would have been all-consuming.
It is all-consuming. Two of the biggest things I found, I'll start with the first one. You have to keep yourself occupied. When you have so much time on your hands, especially when you're inside, because you don't have any phone, you can get books, but at the time I didn't have any books, didn't have any TVs. So it's just me and my thoughts, and they're all consuming, right? So when you have so much time, the biggest way to get around that is distract those thoughts. Have a routine. The only thing that I can control within my life at that time was in my cell. Every day I would train a couple of times a day. Self-talk, that was a non-negotiable, right? So I wanted to train that hard that I was just physically so wrecked and tired that I could sleep well enough, but I also had those daily endorphins kicking in every day. I remember the prison guards wouldn't give me work. I begged them for work for weeks and weeks, but they kept saying, Theodorides, piss off, get out of here. You're on remand, right? Because when you're on remand, you can be moved at any time. And so they wouldn't give me work. And every day I just kept asking, sir, is there any work? Sir, is there any work? Until one day they were like, fuck, this guy won't leave us alone. So they said, rightio, 4:30 in the morning, be ready. We're going to kick your milk in and your breakfast. Come on to work. And I was like, shit, how good's that? So that was the starting point of keeping myself busy and getting into a even bigger routine, and next morning they unlocked my cell door, kicked the milk in with the cereal. They gave you 10 minutes to have your breakfast, get ready. Then off I went and I started work, and then straight after work I'd train again to tire the body. So I'd exhaust myself, which enabled me to sleep well as well. So routine's so important.
Yeah. So really building, you had to insulate yourself against those intrusive thoughts. You knew they were going to come.
Yeah.
But if I'm busy, if I'm consumed, if I'm tired, then that way they won't control me. I'll actually end up controlling the situation.
100%. One of the biggest ways to control unwanted thoughts, and at the time for me, it was trial and error, right? I didn't know what condition I had. And at the time I had post-traumatic stress disorder, plus the intrusive thoughts compounding on top of that as well. So I thought, right, something's not right. What can I do to combat this? So the thoughts, which I share about in my book, the thoughts were so stupid, right? It was a 1 in a trillion chance that could ever happen. So if you ever have an unwanted thought, the biggest thing you can do is be consciously aware of the thought, right? First thing is, don't try and fight it off, because the more you fight it off, the more it's going to try and come in. Let it come in. So when you're consciously aware and you let the thought in, it shows that you're in control.
Yeah.
Right? So you consciously let the thought in. When the thought comes in, is the thought serving its purpose? Are you happy with the thought, or you're not happy with the thought? If you're not happy with the thought, just remember, it's just thought. Another powerful way when the thought is fabricated and it's so silly is to actually verbally express the thought, or actually write the thought down on paper. And I did this. And when I wrote it down and I was reading it to myself, I thought, if anyone heard me read this, they would actually think I'm bloody crazy.
Yeah.
And it sounds so stupid. And I kept doing that method until it alleviated the pain, but it wasn't gone completely. But the moment that I stepped home in 2013 and I stepped foot into my house, I'll never forget that day. Would you believe that all those intrusive thoughts disappeared in an instant?
And have you ever had them since?
Not intrusive thoughts. Negative thoughts come into your mind. Don't get me wrong, but I have the methods that I learned through my time in prison that have equipped me to be able to contain them and combat them as well. So I use those methods all the time. So if anything tries to get into my mind that's not aligned with my purpose or values or what I want to achieve, I just had this ability to block it out. I let it in. Does it serve me? No. And I'll swap it with a thought or a vision that's aligned with who I am and where I want to be.
I love that. We are not our thoughts, and you had to recognize that. And one of the other tools that I've learned when we do have these thoughts that we may not know whether they're real or not is actually just to share it with someone.
Yeah.
And when you communicate it or articulate it, it starts to take a different shape.
Yeah.
And then we can really see if there's something to be fearful of. That would have been a really tough period for you. Retrospectively, it served an enormous amount. You were able to heal through that trauma of those intrusive thoughts. You were able to learn powerful lessons of asking for help, putting your hand up. You were able to learn about being patient in particular as well. When you came out, what did you want for your life after experiencing that?
I had a lot of unfinished business. So for me, it was regrouping and continuing what I'd left off with before that. So I had a choice. I had a choice to keep going with the importing business or do electrical. I couldn't do both. It was burning me out. So I chose to stick with electrical, and always had this dream and vision where I wanted to be the best sparky in Australia. And I wanted to do big projects. That was my vision, and I wanted to grow a team of people. So through working in prison, I used to earn $9 a week, which I still...
$9 a week?
Yeah, $9 a week, yeah.
Wow, that's got to be humbling right there.
Yeah, so, and I've still got the pay slips to prove it, and that taught me so much, because I thought if I can get through that experience and see the other side of that, I can do anything. I really can. And so I had a dream and a vision to build a team, start doing huge projects, and I started putting it out there. And whatever you focus on, you attract. And so I started putting myself out there, meeting people. And I was a huge introvert, mind you. I never used to like going to network meetings and being the first person to go to an individual and shake their hand and introduce myself. So I was a huge introvert, and I'd always be the one hiding in the corner. But once I started developing myself, communication skills as well, putting myself out there, all these opportunities started coming my way. And that's where it all started, the snowball effect.
I love that. Now, you said you wanted to be the best Sparky in Australia. Why? What was behind that drive? What was behind that ambition and goal?
For me, when I do something, I'm either all in or I'm not. I don't have 1 foot on the bus. It's 2 feet on. Let's go. Buckle up. And it was just a dream of mine. I share about it in my book, Master Your Craft, chapter 5. And I believe that it's such a powerful tool when you can really hone in on your skills and who you are and be the best at who you can be. I've always got this thing where I want to be the best. What does it take to be the best? Because a catalyst for that for me was when I'd done my training in TAFE. In my first year, I failed twice in my first year. And the teacher pulled me aside, and I was one of those guys that sit at the back with the cool kids and talk and whatnot. And he pulled me aside one day and he goes, Rob, I'm going to break it to you. The failure rate is 90% in the first year. I'm going to give you one more chance. You can either give up now, or you can really buckle up and, make a name for yourself. And that hit home, because when I start something, I want to finish it. And I was determined. And I was shit at maths. And electrical was based all on mathematics. I went to the extent of, even before exams, I used to write on small pieces of paper all the equations, stick them up on my bedroom wall, the ceiling. So every night before bed, I'd memorize them. So even though I was crap at maths, 6 weeks out, I'd do this technique and it would all sink into my subconscious mind. Come exam time, I would pass. And I turned things around quite quickly, and I said, I want to be the best. I just want to be the best Sparky. How do I do that? So I had to reverse engineer. Well, I looked at the big boys. What they were doing had been around for 50 or 100 years, and I'd see that they're always at these award ceremonies and big functions, and they do these massive projects. And I was like, all right, so I can't do it by doing small projects. I want to do it by doing large projects. How do I do that? So I started modeling what they were doing, right? And that was the first step. And once we won our first project, I'll never forget it. The first time we had our 7-figure year, would you believe that those 2 contracts came from 2 simple conversations?
I absolutely do believe it. It just goes to show the power. You were an introvert. You were labeled yourself an introvert, but you obviously identified that, hey, if I want to be the best Sparky, then I can't be the introvert that sits in the corner. I can't be the person that doesn't go to the network meetings. I've got to have the conversations. And I love some of the lessons that I'm just going to unpack for our audience.
Yeah.
Number one, you got to focus on what you focus on, you attract.
Yeah.
And so you were very intentional. You weren't like, I'm going to be a good tradie. No. I want to be the best. And this is what my definition of the best looks like. You also ask yourself, what does it take to be the best? What it took was for you to obviously learn different ways to get your qualification and be successful. What it took was for you to go from being introverted to extroverted in certain situations. What it took was for you to get out of your own way, step up and put yourself in the arena where you could win these big jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Absolutely love that. And modeling. You looked at what these guys were doing and you said, okay, I'm going to model. And I don't think people do that enough. We think we need to recreate the wheel. We think we need to create something that's never been done before, but the path has often been already walked. We just need to model it.
So true. So true. Yeah. I want to share a tactic that I use, not a tactic, but I remember reading it somewhere and it stuck with me ever since. When we got awarded our first industry award, I remember that I was sitting on the stage taking the group shot right at the end with all the winners, right? And as we were holding the award, I was speaking to a gentleman that was a GM at one of the biggest companies in Australia. I'm not sure what it was in that conversation. It was only a couple of minutes, but I'd left such an impression because I do more listening than talking. So I wait for cues and I jump in, right? There's a huge power in when you listen in a conversation because people give you answers. And I'm not sure what it was in that exact moment, but I talk about it in my book. People will always remember how you make them feel. Always. So I had said something in that conversation which triggered something with this gentleman. Now, fast forward 12 months, we get a phone call from this huge developer that was doing a job not far from where we were at the time. And he said that someone from this company had passed on your details because they'd spoken to you 12 months prior at this ceremony. And as soon as they told me that, it clicked. I knew who it was. And he said they can't do it because they're too busy with work, but they've recommended you. So this is the power of relationships and building that rapport with people and how you make them feel, because that leaves an impression, right? And that contract alone was worth $650,000.
Unbelievable. 1 minute conversation.
That's all it took. Yeah.
You evoked a feeling in that conversation.
Yep.
And that's a remarkable lesson there. I want to go back a little bit. You said something at the start of this interview. You said my parents own small business.
Yeah.
And I learned I learned about small business at a young age, and they were in a service-based business, I understand.
Takeaway shops,
right? Now, my parents also owned small business, and at the time I wasn't aware, but there was obviously this osmosis effect that I learned, what it took and what it needed to be successful within that space.
Yeah.
How important was that for you in that upbringing and growing up in takeaway shops and watching and observing your parents and seeing what they did?
It's everything, Dan. I just wish that I really embraced it much more when I was younger, because when you're young, you really don't understand what life's about, right? It's not until you get older, especially with my age, being 42 and Dad no longer being here, I remember the lessons that he used to teach me, and my mum still to this day, they were just so hardworking. And it was the ethic that really stuck with me, right? These are people who came to Australia in the mid-60s with nothing. No suitcase, little money to their name, didn't know the language. And so I think to myself, could you imagine me doing the same thing, what they did at such a young age, going to a foreign country? I couldn't even think of doing that. And it was the ethic that they instilled in us that I loved, right? It was just being consistent every single day, working 7 days to provide for their kids. And, my parents came from farms. They didn't come from wealthy families, right? But just that work ethic was instilled in me. And I just love that. It was ingrained in my mind. And I'm so grateful. Like, I remember sometimes in school holidays, I used to complain, I want to go play with my friends or, do this, ride my bike. I still had fun, don't get me wrong. But they were great times. Spending time with the family, my parents, and sometimes we take for granted what we have with our parents. I think now I would give anything to be able to hug my dad one more time. And just those special moments, but even communication skills. being an introvert, that forced me to get out there, serve customers, talk to customers. And I just learned so much. I learned another pivotal thing, which I still do to this day. And like I said in my book, I talk about how you make people feel. This story, I've said it hundreds of times and I'll keep saying it to the day I die. My parents, every week in the shop, they used to buy containers of lollipops. These lollipops were given to each child that walked through the door, right, with their parents. So you might not think that's a big deal. Fast forward 20 years later, this girl approaches me in a busy shopping center. I didn't know who she was. And she goes, aren't you one of the brothers that used to work at Apple Tree Oasis in the shop all those years ago? And I said, yeah, I'm Rob, the youngest of the 4 siblings. And she smiled at me and she goes, I'll never forget how I used to feel every time I walked into your parents' shop and get that lollipop. That for me was a moment that I'll cherish forever and I'll never forget, because a 10-cent lollipop left such a huge impression. 20 years later, she remembered.
Remarkable. We often take for granted, but it's these little things that can make people feel so special. A 10-cent lollipop, a handwritten card, a smile, remembering your name. Yeah, it's so great that you learned that at that age. I love, the influence that you had. You learned what real work ethic is like.
Yeah.
And if your parents can do it, coming in as immigrants, can barely speak a lick of English, and they can make it work, what incredible role models they are.
Absolutely.
When I interviewed Bedros Keuilian, who we'll speak about a little bit later, I said, Bedros, you've got the immigrant edge. And he said, yeah, I do. That is that we can take chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad.
Yeah. Love that.
When we see a problem, we turn it into opportunity.
Yeah.
And we have this relentless desire and work ethic. It's just insatiable. How important has that been for you as you've become a successful entrepreneur?
Oh, huge, Dan. It's the tenacity. You got to be tenacious, I'll give you an example with electrical. So many times, even leading up to the events that we did this year, I've always had these people that always say that you can't do it, or you're not good enough, or that can never happen and you won't achieve that. Once I hear those words, it's like just this switch just flicks inside of me, and it's not so much proving to them that I can do it. It's about proving to myself that I can, and the belief in myself. And that's what's driven me so much, is because this life that we have is not a dress rehearsal. We only get one shot at this, right? So I learned this as well, which I was doing this prior to, but one of my mentors, Tim Grover, which I had the pleasure of being coached by, is he always said, and I do the same thing too, every birthday that goes by, I ask myself, is this the last one? Right?
That's powerful. That is powerful.
It's powerful, man. And I'm 42. So if you look at, in the events I shared this, the line of life, the average age span in Australia is 82 years old. So technically, I hope to live to 100. But if I'm halfway there, that's half of it gone already. 1/3 of that sleeping. So when you really think about it, there's not much time left.
We're running out of days.
We are. Every breath, every heartbeat, every day that passes by. So that's why I've got that tenacity inside me, just to give it my all. With everything that I do, there's always 2 feet in the bus and I'm all in.
Love that. Love that. Tim Grover. What an incredible human he is. For those that don't know who Tim Grover is, he was the coach to some of the all-time greats in basketball, in particular, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade. Yep. What did you learn from Tim?
In a nutshell, with Tim, is we had the pleasure of being mentored by him for 8 weeks. The biggest thing for me I learned off the bat was I thought that my mindset was strong until I met Tim. Then I realized there's so many more layers to it. And then I thought to myself, all right, I've got a strong work ethic. And then I met Tim and I thought, shit, I'm nowhere near that work ethic, right? So it really puts you into perspective of what level he's at.
Yeah.
We're talking about a guy that's worked with the best ever.
Ever seen.
Yeah. So, and I love the story of Tim. You read his books, Relentless of Winning. They're just unreal books. A guy that was supposed to work with MJ, Michael Jordan for a month, ended up being 15 years. So Tim just takes you to another level. It just takes you into the stratosphere of the way you think, in not taking no for an answer, because we've all got these voices in our heads, right? That always try to talk us out of what we want to do. That you're not good enough, you'll never amount to anything. This is the shit that we have to control. Because the more you repeat that subconsciously, that'll just keep ingraining in your head.
Absolutely, it will.
And you got to turn back to what I said before, the intrusive thoughts. It doesn't take that long for those thoughts to ingrain for you to start to believe it, right? You got to be very careful what's going in your head on a constant basis.
You've got to guard against it.
You have to. Yeah.
I love that I said that there's different levels to this. So at times we think we might be working hard. Sometimes we might think we are successful. And then you go and meet someone of Tim's caliber and you're like, oh no, there's a whole different definition over here. This is and this is what's possible as well. He shines a light and goes, this is what mental resilience looks like. This is what work ethics looks like. This is what greatness looks like.
Absolutely. You got to understand, what got you here won't get you there.
No.
So just picture you getting into an elevator and getting onto level 1, right? Like a video game. To get to level 2, you can't be the same person that you were on level 1. Somewhere along the line in that process of going from 1 to 2, you have to do something. You have to change. What is it? Your skills, your knowledge. And another thing that really stuck with me, I remember saying once that information is power. And then I got abruptly, Tim stepped in and he goes, no, information utilizes power. And that stuck with me. And what do I mean by that? So many of us can read all the books, can listen to all the podcasts, can have the best mentors. But if you're not implementing that information, it's just going to sit dormant. So whatever you learn and whatever you're attracted to and you feel aligned with, start putting into practice. It's not going to happen on its own.
Yeah.
That's when results come.
Well said. I mean, the information has never been more available, but how well are we utilizing that to get to where we need to get to or where we want to get to? You've had this incredible journey. You've gone from being incarcerated to building this wildly successful electrical business, but you've left that behind. You've now moved into the coaching, speaking, mentoring space. You held a remarkable event this year, Rise to Greatness. I was there. It was a privilege to be part of. Why?
For me, the biggest catalyst for Connie and I to make that transition is that business is still running. However, we've focused our aim on impacting lives. For me, everyone talks about legacy. Legacy here, legacy there. What is legacy? I believe legacy is what people or your kids think of you when you're not here, right? They're the biggest testimonials. How will people remember you, I believe? And just like my late father, he wasn't well known, he wasn't famous. But look at that small gesture, the legacy that he's leaving by me sharing that story with so many people. So for me, it's impacting lives. And it couldn't come at a better time. Especially, I truly believe that God put me on this path to go through the hardships, to go through prison, to get to the other side, to write the book. I started this in 2013, mind you.
Wow.
So I struggled so much to get it on paper, to articulate it in a way where it sounded good, and I struggled. However, I thought the events are coming up, I've got to hold myself accountable, and accountability is powerful. Once you put a date to it as well. That's why I said every person will get a copy. And if I don't finish it, I'm going to look like an idiot in front of so many people. So for us, it's having an impact with people with their thoughts, achieving what they want to achieve, helping them earn the money that they want to earn. Because so many people we see with our coaching is they have these beliefs, these huge ball and chains that just keep weighing him down and holding him back. And we're all about breaking those and just helping them see that they can have exponential growth. It all starts with belief. It all starts with here. So many of us train the body, right? I love exercising. I love training. How many of us on a daily basis train from the neck up with our minds? Very little.
Not enough.
Not enough. And we have to be consciously aware that every single day we have to really filter through what's coming up on here, how we're speaking. Our language is so important. How people are perceiving us and how they speak to us. and what we're consuming. That's important as well. People are just so fixated and stuck on their devices, on their phones. I don't watch any news, very rarely, and people are like, well, how do you know what's going on in the world? Well, I get filled in. I might see something and I'll, tune in for a couple of seconds, but I don't want to focus on stuff that I can't control. So I'll focus on the content that I want to consume, that can expand my bandwidth and better me as a person. Therefore, I can help our people that we're coaching as well.
I love that. So tell us a little bit more about Rise to Greatness. What's the mission that you're on right now with Connie? Because you guys are on fire. You hosted a major event, but I see you here, there, and everywhere right now.
Yeah.
Hosting more events. You've launched a program, Inner Circle, speaking to you off camera, Inner Circle for the youth. What's the mission and what's the vision for you, Rob, and the business itself for Rise to Greatness?
To put it simply, is we want to elevate individuals one event at a time, right?
Love that.
And how do we do that? We do that by bringing the best speakers that can impact people. Dan, when we done the events, we called every single person after the event to get feedback, right? I believe feedback is a critical thing in how you can better yourself and do it better next time. Even to the point where after the first event with Bedros at the airport, I said, I put him aside. I said, hey, what can we do better for Brisbane? And he goes, X, Y, Z. Roger that. Thank you. First thing I did in Brisbane, we landed there, went to the AV team, spoke to them. Yeah, cool, sorted, no worries. And I told him that everything's sorted, will be cool. You have to do that, right? People are often worried about getting constructive criticism. Why? So for us, it's helping people reach their full potential through our events, through our Inner Circle coaching. We've made the Inner Circle coaching for the adults affordable. Right, so it's a community where people get together, they're accountable. Every week we have tasks. And I can't believe, Dan, we share this off camera. Even in the space of 3 weeks, we've seen such amazing growth, and the stories of people, their wins have been magnificent. And they're even teaching their kids to do this, right? So it's powerful stuff. And it all starts up here in the mind, because if you don't set that foundation right, the mind, over a certain period of time, it's going to become shaky. And when it becomes shaky, there's a good chance it's going to crumble. So for us, it's unlocking people's potential and really making them accountable for their actions. So that's why we're doing the events. That's our mission, because I believe a lot of people, especially our youth, and I don't mean this in a bad way, a lot of people are drifting. They don't have a true purpose where they're headed towards, and it's like a ship taking off into sea with no destination in sight. And that's quite sad, because a lot of people will go through their lives, get to their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and not being fully fulfilled and knowing what their true purpose was. And because of that, they have so many regrets. So for us, it's not having any regrets and really peeling off the layers so people can see what they can achieve in a short space of time.
Wonderful mission, elevating individuals one event at a time. I absolutely love that. Love that you help them realize their full potential and give them a purposeful life and enable them to get out of their own way. That is remarkable. Now, we've mentioned him a few times. He was a very popular guest on this podcast, Bedros Keuilian. I have to ask, what was it like to work closely with that man? Because I hold him in high esteem. He's always been very generous, very wise to my audience. What was it like to work side by side with him?
True professional.
What do you mean by true professional?
True professional. From the moment he touched down, that week that we were together doing all the interviews, the podcasts, with yourself, with Mark Burris, I kept asking him when I was texting him and calling him, I said, B, what can we do to make this memorable for you? Like, whatever you need, we're here. And he just goes, Rob, all good. I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve. Even to the point where we weren't planning to do a VIP masterclass. And that only happened about 3 or 4 weeks prior to the event starting, where I had the idea with our team. We'd come up with the idea, and I thought, let me pitch it to him. And so I reached out, and he goes, yep, give me a call tomorrow. We'll have a quick chat. And I love this because he was open to suggestions, right? He wasn't fixated on just coming here, speaking, and that was it. I told him the idea. He goes, great, love it. He didn't have to do that, but he did it, free will. He spent more time with the people afterwards in the masterclass and even taking photos with people.
Yeah.
He wasn't supposed to take photos with every single person, but he made the effort. He goes, no, I'm going to take a photo with every single person. I've made the trip down under. People have paid money to come and see me, and whatever it takes, I'll do, if they want a photo, I'll take a photo. Great guy, very raw, very real. And I think because he has that ethnic background with that story with his parents as well, it really resonated with me to bring him out here. Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing so, because you could see that, and such a great definition of a true professional there. Like, just the first thing he said to me when I saw him in the podcast room was, how can I make this great for you?
Yeah.
And I just love that he was there to serve immediately, and he went truly above and beyond for you, and also in my case as well. So obviously, and there's a lot of risk involved, no doubt. Like, you'd put on a massive event, not just one event, but you did 3 massive events. We did Sydney, you did Brisbane, you did Melbourne. There's obviously huge costs involved, investment involved in bringing someone like Bedros out from the US, big locations, marketing, so many moving parts. You had catering. There was just so many different elements. Have you always been a risk taker when it comes to business?
Well, I'd have to say that, being in prison, I guess that was a risk, wasn't it? So, I have been. This was a huge risk for us, but it also gave us the opportunity to put us on the map. And B said, he goes, if you do a good job with us, other people will see that. And it was about building the social proof as well. And that was critical for us. Did we walk away with what we're anticipating? No, it wasn't that much, right? The profit wasn't that great of a deal, but we pulled it off. And what we learned from that process was you can't put a dollar value to that.
No.
Right? We know what to do next time. We know what people to use, what contractors to use, what venues to go to, how to redo our marketing campaign, what ads to use, what copywriting to use. We know so much now that we've got that artillery under our belt that we can use, right? Now, that to me is priceless. So the risk factor, it was a huge risk, but this is the difference between people who are comfortable and people who want to do great things. If you're comfortable, you are never going to take that risk. We had so many people, even after the event, throw arrows in our backs, right? And I'm not saying that I'm the most perfect individual. I've made the biggest mistakes, but I'll be the first person to put my hand up to admit it. Whereas a lot of people wouldn't do that. And people are quick to judge. Let me just say that. But when it's time to step into the arena, they will never step foot in that arena because they don't have that drive. They don't have that heart. They don't have that resiliency to see it through. And these are the same people where you've given them an opportunity, but they'll still do that stuff behind your back.
And again, I just want to unpack some of the lessons for our audience. That is my job here, to really shine a light. And if you want to achieve anything great in life, you can't do so from your comfort zone. You've got to take risks. They're obviously measured, they're obviously educated, but you've got to put yourself on the line, and that's what you guys did, and delivered something truly special.
Yeah.
The second part is, it's very easy to chirp from the sidelines. It's very easy to troll and belittle, but you know what? That's all they're ever going to do.
True.
And, we're in the game and we're playing.
Yeah.
And then the third part for me is just the lessons that I love your perspective, Rob, because a lot of people would just simply look at dollars and cents and go, well, was it worth it financially? But you see the big picture.
Yeah.
Wait a second. I just condensed years of learning into a few months. Now, when I run world-class events, I'm going to be that much wiser, that much savvier, and it's going to serve everything we do from this point forward.
So true. Couldn't have said it better. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. Now, you work with your wife, Connie. It's been awesome spending a bit of time with you guys today. And, she's amazing. Her energy is incredible. You can see that she's so driven. You can see the joy that she has. She's getting messages from clients. What's it like working with Connie?
Connie she's amazing. Her energy is so infectious. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. She has lifted me up in literally the most darkest moments, and likewise, and that's what a good partner does. And they never judge you. They're always there to lift you up when you're down. And they're always by your side no matter what, and we often share the thing where, she'd say, I'll take a bullet for you, and I say, I'll do the same. That's when you've got a true life partner, and my dad was a very, a spiritual man, but he was in tune with people. He could sense if people were good or bad. He could just sense their energy. And from the moment that I brought Connie home, he goes to me, there's something special about this girl, and he always prayed that we'd one day end up together and be married, and we did. And thankfully we done it before my dad passed away, but she's amazing, Dan. So you got to have a special individual in your corner to really lift you up. And when you go through the good moments and the bad moments, it unites you even more, especially the bad moments. It unites you even more.
I love that. It's you guys are a really powerful couple and duo, and you can just see the respect and the reverence that you have for one another. And business life is so much more enjoyable and so much more fun when you got that person in your corner.
Sure is.
I want to know what's in store for the future for Rob and Rise to Greatness.
For us, it's holding the bigger events once a year, but also maintaining throughout the year with our coaching clients in our inner circle and showing up every week to the best of our ability to serve, because there's no greater satisfaction than being able to serve and help others. The feeling that I get when people come back with a testimonial, or I get a phone call and say, Rob or Connie, what you've taught us has changed my life, has done X, Y, Z, has made me earn this amount of money. Money, again, can't buy that, right? So for us, it's being able to serve as many people as possible. I want to write another book. What that looks like, I'm not too sure. But what I find fascinating is I know so many people that are extremely wealthy, but yet so miserable inside. And these people are the same people who have always spoken behind my back. But you got to remember, people are behind you for a reason, right? But it fascinates me that even though that they're so wise and so successful, they won't share their knowledge. And that really annoys me, because if you can help someone, why wouldn't you? The way I see it is, if I've got information to share with someone, and if I was to pass away tomorrow and I haven't shared that, that's a huge waste and a huge sin, in my opinion. So
I agree. And we haven't known each other long, but you're here. You're so generous with your knowledge, your time, your wisdom, and your experience. And it's wonderful that you've created a platform that gives you the opportunity to do so. So listeners, look out for Rise to Greatness. They are an amazing events, and you definitely want to be part of those events in 2025. Now, you've written a book. Tell us about the book, because I want our listeners to look it up. I want them to get access to it. I know this is the book that's obviously in your heart. You've been wanting to write this for a long time. You said that. Really it sounds like the blueprint that got you from your lowest point to where you are now.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about Velocity.
So Velocity there's 10 chapters to the book. After every chapter, I've put 3 critical points to follow that you can implement in your life or business. And the first few chapters focuses on mindset. It focuses on your limiting beliefs. It focuses on your language. It focuses on your intuition. And then the second half is really about mastering your craft, pricing for profit. It's about picking your fighter jet crew. It's about thinking in a way that's critical thinking. And so I've unpacked it in a way where I've sort of felt it aligns and falls into place with the steps that you need to take. And with life, there isn't a certain or specific amount of steps. There's always going to be unlimited steps, right? But I believe that it's a critical foundation to get your mind right before anything else. Your mindset right. People often say you need a strong mindset this, mindset that. A lot of fluff around mindset, right? But you really got to break it down and think, well, everything starts with a thought. Everything in this room right now, every invention all started with a thought. So when people tell me that the thoughts and the mind isn't that important, I beg to differ, right? And so it really makes you think in a way, well, okay, I've got to get the mind right first and then focus on these things. And the book took me a long time to write. I struggled a lot, like I said before, but I thought to myself, it'd be a huge injustice to myself and to everybody else if I didn't release this book to help that one single person. Soon I'll even have some of these books in the prisons.
Wow.
You know, which is amazing because that just aligned perfectly. And it's beautiful because I know that so many people will be reading that behind bars in their cell. And if that can be the catalyst in something that I say that can change their view or perception, I've done my job.
What a special moment that will be, and a full 180. So, you know, you obviously were incarcerated, and now you are giving the lessons, the learnings, the essentially, you know, the blueprint on how to go from where you were to where you are now. And that's exactly the lessons they need to learn as well.
Yeah.
Rob, there's going to be people in our community that want to get to know you, want to get to know Rise to Greatness, want to get to know more about the book, Inner Circle. How can they do so?
Best place is to follow on Instagram, so Rob Theo, and also follow our Instagram page for Rise to Greatness. Yeah.
Guys, make sure you do so. These guys are on a mission and nothing is going to stop them. They're just going from strength to strength. Rob, one final question from me.
Sure.
And this is one that I like to ask many of my guests, and that is, what is the best advice you have either been given or received?
I'll keep referring back to the story with my father and my mother, is people will always remember how you make them feel. So you don't have to always give a gift as such. Doesn't have to be a lollipop, doesn't have to be a tangible thing. The most powerful thing you can do when you're not feeling the best is do something great for somebody else on that day. Whether it's 2 kind words, whether it's a compliment, whether it's a small gesture, and you watch your physiology change just by doing that. So if you're having a bad day, a bad week, or a bad month, whatever it might be, just remember, do something good for somebody else because they'll always remember that.
Incredible advice and a fantastic way to finish this interview. Rob, I just want to acknowledge you. I want to say thank you for being so generous. You're an incredible host at Rise to Greatness for me and my colleagues. You've been so generous with your time and expertise and knowledge today. And thank you for serving my community. I appreciate you.
Anytime, Dan. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Cheers.
Thanks, Rob.
No worries.